if you're a recruiter hiring. So let's talk about our sponsors, General Assembly and ProductHired. Brianna, would you like to say something about General Assembly?
Yes, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Brianna, and I manage events and short form workshops at General Assembly in Austin. A little bit about who we are in case there's a few of you who have not been to an event or a class with us before. We are a global tech education company focused on the most in-demand skills, primarily within business, data, design, and technology. And our mission is to empower individuals to do what they love. And we do that in a few different ways. We offer full-time courses for those looking to make career changes, part-time courses for those looking to level up, short-form workshops, and free community events like this one online and in person at any of our 30-plus campuses across the globe. And we also work with companies to help them retain and reskill their talent through private workshops and courses. So lots of different things going on. I'm really glad that we can partner with ProductHired to bring awesome discussions and events to our community. And I wanted to just give everyone a heads up. We launched today Free Fridays. So there's going to be some select classes if anyone's wanting to use some shelter-in-place time to skill up. I know a lot is going on, and we're kind of living in a little bit of a chaotic time, to say the least. So we're just trying to offer as much as we can to keep our community going and calm throughout this. So if there's anything that y'all need or if there's any questions that y'all have, I'm the one that sent out the reminder emails, so you can just respond to that email, and I'm happy to point you to more direct information or whatever the discussion is. Thanks so much for having me.
Cool, thanks. Definitely thanks for General Assembly. They've been very flexible in this COVID whole situation. This was supposed to be an on-site event on March 31st, and it got delayed to today, remote. So, but we're all adjusting to this remote life. The other sponsor is ProductHired, and I actually happen to be the spokesperson for ProductHired. So ProductHired.com is a career site for product professionals. We're a job board, and we launched about a year ago, and we're adding tons of features. But our goal is to have every product role on the web on our site, so you don't have to go everywhere. We really focus and we go deep into the product areas. We have study guides for Google, Facebook, Amazon. We're adding more, and we're really adding features all the time. And we definitely love to have your feedback. So by all means, give it to me, appreciate it. So let's go on. So what is ProductHired Job Club? Well, ProductHired Job Club, so I don't know if you all know, but I am also one of the organizers for Product Tank Austin. And we've been running product events here for, I don't know, several years. And there's several other product organizations here in Austin, which are some great meetups. Product League, which also goes to General Assembly, and several others. And one of the things we realized is people are always looking for jobs, and we can't always have topics on jobs. So that's why we decided to create ProductHired Job Club, a separate meetup just focused solely on this. The other reason is that we have a lot of transients coming into Austin from California and other cities. And we love Austin. And we love Austin because of the culture of people helping one another and relational. And so one of the reasons we have these meetups and one of the reasons ProductHired Job Club exists is because we want to brainwash all the newcomers to realize we're here to help you, and we expect you to help others. We help one another in Austin. We are a community, we are relational, and and that's the culture in Austin. So as we often say, welcome to Austin, and definitely enjoy the time here and share the love. So what is ProductHired Job Club? So it's a place to network. Obviously, physical networking isn't so easy right now, but we definitely have the Slack community, Product in Austin. And just so you know, Product in Austin Slack is all the meetups that are dealing with product in town. We share that Slack. So it's not owned by anyone in particular. We all share it. And so that's why we definitely wanted you to come and join it. But it's also ProductHired Job Club is a place to come and find jobs. So a lot of companies, one thing you know in Austin, companies are hiring and they don't always post it. And so networking is key. And so we want this to be a place where you can find out about the jobs that are going on before they're posted. It's also a place to find talent. So we are very recruiter friendly. You know, we want recruiters to come. We don't make you jump through hoops and pay me $50. You can if you want, but you don't need to. We want recruiters to come. We are wanting to be the connecting place where you can meet great product people and product people can meet great companies. So by all means, recruiters should come. And we're also a place to, we educate. And so we educate on how to find jobs, how to interview. And the topic tonight is actually about panelists, product hiring managers. What are they looking for? And so this is an AMA tonight. So I hope you have your questions ready. And I think down the road, once we actually have life figured out in COVID world, we're gonna have job fairs and we're gonna be bringing people together. And so we're really looking forward to that. So who is ProductHired Job Club for? So we're not just product management as a lot of people think. We're product managers, product marketing managers, product owners, user researchers, data scientists, product design, designers, project managers, program managers, data scientists, and so on. Basically, if you work on a product, you belong here. And you know, we don't focus heavily on engineering simply because there's so many other meetups for engineering people, but you know, we won't turn you away either. But definitely, we are focused on the product skill sets of definitely these individuals and more. So welcome. So as you probably know, we have a Slack community. And if you haven't joined it, I heavily encourage you while we're talking to get on there so you can ask your questions on the AMA. You can go to productinAustin.com and there's a place there where you join, you enter your email, it'll send you an invite to add you to the Slack community. And then ask your questions on channel meeting chat. So definitely do there, but there's so many channels on the Slack community and it's fairly active. So I encourage you to go there, join other channels and network there. I also want to mention Job Club, channel Job Club. That's a place where you can actually talk about joining jobs and what you're looking for. And then we have several job channels where there's postings. Okay. So hiring and finding jobs. So you can post jobs on Slack and we have multiple jobs channels depending on the seniority level. So check that out. There's junior, mid-level, senior, management, and remote jobs. And we also have a job bot that automatically posts jobs there from the ProductHired website for the Austin area. So definitely check that out. New jobs are posted every day, except the weekend. We tell the bot take a vacation. We also have the Job Club channel, so check that out. If you are a recruiter on this Zoom channel, definitely, it's going against my zipper. Oh gosh, let's zip this up. Somebody just messaged me on the Slack community. So if you're a recruiter, post on the meeting chat if you're hiring. Definitely, this is really important, especially during this pandemic. A lot of companies have frozen hiring, but if you're hiring, I have so many people that I talk to who are looking for roles from product management to data science to user researchers to design. I try to network and try to find these people and try to connect them, but you can connect with them right now tonight by posting on the Slack channel, and you can always post on the jobs channel itself. And like I said, we're going to have a time this evening where there's a breakout session where I will open up and you can open up your audio and all that stuff and actually talk about what you're hiring. So, okay, here we go, 6:15. Am I on time? I'm about on time, a little fast, but I'd like to introduce our panel session tonight. Again, just a reminder, post your questions on meeting chat. On Slack, and I'm going to stop sharing right now so I can get the full view of the panelists. And I also encourage you to put on speaker view That way the speaker who's talking shows up. So we'll go ahead and do this. Why don't we start off while we get questions ready? Daniel, could you introduce yourself real quickly?
Sure. So I'm the product manager of data at Duo Security. I don't have a particularly American accent, but I've been out in Texas now for just short of 2 years. And I've been at Duo now for 6 months, 7 months. But I've been in product management or owned my own company for, well, basically since I graduated back in 2013. So I have quite a bit of experience in kind of releasing from B2B, SaaS, and hardware products. So yeah, but at the moment, I'm kind of mostly focused on data infrastructure, pipelines, APIs, reporting, and basically anything to do with data. So that's just kind of a brief blurb about me.
Cool. And are you, is Duo hiring?
Duo is hiring. I don't have I'm just in fact getting the list of most up-to-date jobs we're hiring for. The one thing I would say is about whenever you look for jobs at Duo, don't just use the built-in Austin place for jobs, because often a lot of the jobs that will be posted will say that they're only available in San Fran or Ann Arbor, but actually what they don't really care that much about it. It's just that's how it's structured. So I would always look on the Cisco job site under Duo and just see kind of what jobs are listed, because even if it says one location, there's a very high chance we'll accept you in Austin or wherever you are if you're the right candidate.
Cool, thank you. So let's see who's next. Alexander, would you like to introduce yourself and if you're hiring?
Yes, thank you. I'm Alex Traugott, and I work at Charles Schwab. I'm on the digital messaging product team. So we do all the capabilities as well as the delivery platform to send out all our digital communications, which are in the billions of messages a year. And we are hiring both on my team, but across digital services at Schwab right now. So I will definitely share those links. We have a management position and 2 product manager positions on my team open right now.
Cool, cool, thank you. And let's go to Nathan. Tell us about yourself and what you guys are hiring for if you're hiring.
Yes. So I'm Nathan Suddeath. I work essentially product management recruiting for Google here. Spent around a little over a year in that space with the company. So to answer your question, we are hiring, but not so much in Austin at the moment. It's actually a unique thing. We've had some roles recently here, so we do have them from time to time. But for the most part, my roles at the moment are in the Bay.
Cool. And then Vince.
Hey everybody, my name is Vince Marotte. I'm head of product at Overhaul. I guess we're past startup phase. We're done taking funding and we're in revenue phase. So I wouldn't call us a startup anymore. And we do, our technology is based around supply chain security and tracking and basically looking for weaknesses in supply chain and helping companies improve that. Our focus mainly is high value, so we spend most of our time in tech and pharma and helping companies around the world move their stuff around the world safely and securely.
Cool, cool.
And I am currently looking for a senior product manager in Austin with a June to July start timeframe.
Okay, cool. So let's look at questions. We're not getting a lot, people. Come on, start posting questions to Slack. So here's a question for anyone who wants to answer. It doesn't look like it's for a particular person. What are some of the common roles that internal candidates move into product from? So in your companies, you know, people who move within the company to a product role, have you seen which roles that you think your companies are very open to transitions from? Anybody wants to take a stab at that?
Yeah,
okay,
I can start. So for context, Charles Schwab is about 20,000 employees now, and we've got upwards of 6 in Austin. And what we see a lot of is people coming from support team, client-facing roles. So in e-services, doing chat or support. And then we also see a few people moving over from engineering roles. And then some folks come over from project management and that business analyst type of role. So internally, those are where we see most of the movement from. And the client-facing role makes a lot of sense. Like, they're the ones dealing with clients using our products, and they have this feedback, and sometimes they know the product suite better than some of the product owners do. So that's where we see some of that movement from. And I know on my team, we've hired over, since I've been here, at least 10 people coming out of that support team role.
I would kind of echo kind of what Alex said. Generally, though, I think product management is probably one of the few jobs where there's no actual clear path to being a PM. If I look at the product managers in Duo, we've got it from support, from engineering, from technical support, and then you have people like me who have just kind of like, run a company and gone that way. I think the biggest thing is that I think a lot of it is kind of cultural, and I think the biggest thing as well is just getting out there and talking to clients. A lot of what being a PM is just deciphering what clients need, and I think that's kind of like why like the analyst role kind of works a little bit. But as long as you showcase, like, what we look for when we hire is as long as you showcase that you're looking to articulate the customer's problems and their pain points, we can kind of work with that.
Yeah, I think my best product managers end up in leadership roles because I treat my team as the CEOs of their tower of products, and they run that business. And if they're good at it, their focus is on leadership. And the route to that could be any number of. I've seen people come from sales. I've seen people come from engineering. I've seen people come from marketing into that space. But my best product managers end up being leaders. And some prefer to if they've been in product management and going into, or program management or product owning into product management, and they find it's too broad for them, they tend to go back to a focus. So that would be sales, marketing, engineering, etc.
Cool. Real quick, for those who are in product, how did you get into product? I know Daniel said he was running his own company. The others? Vince?
Yeah, same thing. I come from an entrepreneurial background. So I launched a product. Now I've been in the game since the late 90s, one of the old guys here. Launched a few startups that were focused product, one in financial tech. And then later one in the music industry, I launched a product. And then I went into consulting space for a while and was in enterprise. I'm one of the people in Austin who was at Dell, which is pretty common. So I was at Dell for a little while at enterprise level. So yeah, for me, it's always been about the product.
Cool. Alex, did you say?
Yeah, I have a very circuitous route to get into product. My background is in liberal arts, and then I actually got a Master of Fine Arts in poetry and sculpture. But I always did technology on the side and was really curious about that and how products worked and both physically and technically digitally. And so I always had these jobs on the side that were related to technology. And eventually I kind of moved into that nonprofit space, living in DC for about 10 years and doing a lot around data and content management, enterprise content management, web content management. And then I've done a lot of things on the side with friends and moved back to Austin and kind of did some more public sector and consulting work before ending up at Schwab in this role. So it takes all kinds of different paths to get into product. I think it's relatively new that we see people getting degrees in product and coming out of school with that background. Most folks I know come to it either from entrepreneurial or these very different, side routes from other careers, but when they find that passion in product.
Cool. So here's another question. So for PMs who have less experience than other PMs who are applying to the same role, how can they get the advantage over those who probably have more experience? What could they show? What are some of the attributes that trump experience, I guess, is the question.
I can start this one off. trumping experience. I think the biggest thing is, again, culture. Show that you're key. And in my old company, we interviewed someone who was about as interesting as what can only describe as a beige piece of wood. They had all the experience in the world, but they were about as engaging as a doorknob. It was really bad. And we went with actually someone who was way more inexperienced, but I've never seen someone so keen to learn in my entire life. They literally just wanted to learn, and that kind of quality you can't teach. Experience you can just gather by being involved, getting involved, just slogging through it. But the actual keenness to learn and the speed at which you learn and kind of push that out and kind of, show that to your team and the wider job community, the wider company community you're involved in, you can't teach. And that's something that probably, especially at Duo, is something that is incredibly highly ranked when looking for candidates, just because you don't want someone who has the experience but has no interest in learning and furthering themselves and just wants to stay where they are. And that's not something that is a particularly endearing quality.
Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll second that. I think that idea of like growth mindset and people that are curious and always wanting to learn more. And I think also for us, there is fit across teams and roles. So I know among the hiring managers and the directors, we really share now, and HR has picked up on that. Candidates that may be really stellar, but not a good fit, for your particular role can fit somewhere else in the organization. So we focus a lot on building a pool of talent, even if we're not directly hiring. So it's always good to get your foot in the door that way, because there's a lot of sharing, and somebody who may be second place on somebody else's list is really number one on mine. So I think that's it also, is fit for team can be a little bit different, but there's a lot of soft skills in product. Communication is a huge one that I look for, critical thinking, stakeholder, how do you manage these diverse groups of people, because product goes across the whole organization. So really, there's experience, but what is your mindset in these different situations, and throwing those scenarios at people. They may have experience, but can they think on their feet? And, how do they approach a problem? That's one of the big things I look for.
Okay, sounds great. So going back to that earlier question that we had about people internally to the company transitioning, we have two questions about that. The first question is actually interesting. What blind spots do you see that internal candidates might have, or things that might not be great, right, for the product role that they may not, for an internal candidate? And then there's another question, which are, what are some transferable skills that you look for someone transitioning into a PM? So those are a little bit different questions, but I think one is, what are the blind spots, but what are the things you're actually looking for?
I can touch on that first one, because that one's near and dear to my heart, on blind spots, specifically people coming from engineering. A lot of times engineering is a head down, in your seat role, getting stuff done. And if you're very good at it, it's a tough transition into product management, because it is, even if you're an individual contributor, you need to lead, and you need to lead in obscurity. And it's a tough transition. I've seen a lot of people fail at that. And insiders will call them propeller heads. They're very good at being technical, and they're very good at doing their thing. And I always look for that as a red flag. Can you make that transition from being a heads down, in your seat grinder to someone who can lead in obscurity, be able to multi-switch across many disciplines? That can be a challenge for a lot of people. So that's a blind spot I like to make people aware of ahead of time.
For blind spots, one person's blind spot is probably another person's non-blind spot. Sorry, words just left me there. I would definitely agree with what Vince said and that kind of thing. A lot of people also seem to be under the misconception that being a PM is just kind of talking to customers on a daily basis and then just going to engineering and saying, hey, go do this. it's really not. You kind of quarterback the entire operation. So you need to have a very close relationship with sales, with CS, with engineering, with your engineering manager, with the various organizations, because you're kind of the one in bringing it all together and making it rolls out smoothly. So I guess kind of like a lot of blind spot is probably really simplistic. It's just time management. Just because your day can go from being kind of like, oh, I can actually get work done, to being in meetings for 12 hours straight. And so if you don't have that time management to actually be able to push stuff forward, it's so easy just to get bogged down. And I think a lot of people kind of overlook that because it's kind of seen as like a bit of a simplistic skill, but it is so valuable. And it's something that I learn every single day. Also just like, excuse my language, not being an asshole. Like in a lot of jobs within a different company, you can kind of be a bit of an asshole and get away with it. But being a PM, you really don't want to be, because that will really bite you in your ass. Because a lot of, especially the companies I've been involved in, a lot of that information flow is really down to do with those like informal networks. You kind of like, build with people, those like work relationships, getting a little bit of information before maybe it's, like before it's raised or escalated. And that's a really good skill to have. And it saved my ass a lot of times.
Totally agree.
Skills, again, that we look for, it's just for me, like skills are usually teachable. Just show someone you just want to be that job, that you're keen, that probably by all rights I should not have gotten the duo job. I don't have a particularly good background in cybersecurity. I don't really code, and considering it's a data engineering, data management, data infrastructure PM role, there's quite a heavy reliance on technical ability. But it's just the fact that like I went out there and I'm learning everything I possibly can, and they saw that in me. So again, it really is just how you present yourself and kind of come across. Like I really wish there was a magic formula I could give you guys. It would have made my life a lot easier, but there sadly is not. Or if there is, if someone could share it with me, that would make my life a lot easier.
Okay, well, here's another question. Actually, this is a great question. I hear this all the time, but what's the differences between a good product manager and a great product manager? And let's narrow this down a little bit for like, how do you assess this during interviewing? So when you're interviewing someone, how do you determine this person is going to be good or this person is going to be great or stellar?
Well, at Google, I'll kind of start off with how we do it, because leveling always comes up in conversations with candidates, and how how they would be leveled or based on how they do or whatnot, and how that's kind of, I guess, kind of seen versus other companies in the market. So in terms of like what's good or great from what I've seen in interviewing, comes down to, I always tell folks, if you're a senior product manager, you're going to be asked the same very question that I'm going to ask somebody with 2 years of experience. The difference is, what do you bring to the table in terms of your background and your knowledge that makes your answer much different than, say, somebody that only has 1 or 2 years of experience. So for us, like it's the devil's in the details, right? Like if I ask you a very generalized question, for instance, and a lot of the interview questions are very generalized, is like what level of detail do you get into? What areas are you looking out for? What areas are you maybe missing? Someone who's maybe only a year or two into product might not be thinking about these sort of things that obviously someone who has 10, 15 years of experience should be aware of, right? So I think those are type of things. Does that automatically mean you're not a great product manager because you don't do that? No, of course not. But at least in kind of our interview sense, that's a big judgment into how we see that.
I'll throw in the to Daniel's asshole comment, basically the opposite of that. Do people like you? Do people love you? Do people want to do favors for you? And a lot of times that's how we move the ball down the field, because we have to get marketing, we have to get sales, we got to get finance, we got to get engineering to prioritize us to get my thing moved down the field. And I think that's key. And that is really hard to show in a resume. It's even hard to show in an interview. But when I get those referrals about people, then that's usually a pretty big signal that, hey, this person is very likable. It sounds kind of dumb when you say it, but as a leader, when I see that in action and I see my team like moving the ball down the field, the big wins are almost always because someone prioritized something my product managers were trying to get done to the detriment of something else. And so you got to have those political chops, and that you got to be a salesman, and people got to like you and want to do you favors. I also tell my team, I'll be the asshole. If you run into walls, that's my job to come in and knock walls down that are in your way.
Yeah, I think that the counter to that is somebody who's able to challenge the status quo without being an asshole. So it's that political, like, how do you challenge someone in a good way and people can see a different point of view and get on board with it? So it's that salesman, not in a sleazy way, but that salesman of, this is a really good idea, let me prove to you why, and tailoring that message to the different audiences. So we'll probe a lot on, like, how do you communicate this to, you know, an engineering group, or if you're talking to the CIO, what would you say versus you're talking to somebody in sales, or you're talking to somebody on the front line, to see how they change and modulate their message. And even the people we interview will be with people outside of our teams to get feedback across the board. And then that curiosity piece for me is really big on interviews. Like, how much research have you done? Do you know what my company does? Do you know how Schwab makes its money? You know, what work did you put in coming into this interview? And it's amazing how little effort people put in to finding out anything about the company they're trying to get hired on with. So we kind of eliminate a lot of people that way in the beginning before we even go to group interviews with larger teams across the firm.
Cool. So one of the things that I give advice to people many times when they're trying to break into product is do side projects, right? Go build something, right? So as hiring managers and recruiters, like, how do you look at side projects? Or even if they have a side gig, you know, people know me, like I have like 3 or 4 side companies going on at the same time. What do you guys think about that when you see someone and they see that they're working on a lot of things, side projects or things? What do you think about that?
This might be a bit controversial. I've never taken that on board, really. It's not going to hurt you, but it's probably not going to, in my opinion, progress you. If your side project is your livelihood, or, you know, you've got 4 side projects or like 4 little companies that is your livelihood, then yeah, that's what we'll judge you on. But a side project for me, I always feel is like, especially when a side project should just be a labor of love, sorry. Or that's what it is for me. You know, I have a few, like, I just tinker on just to have fun and just to kind of further my knowledge. I'm not doing this to try and get a job. I kind of see that as just trying to extend the job interview process. And that to me doesn't really show anything. My biggest things I'm looking for when I have hired in the past is kind of like what you've done, your current roles, like what have you progressed your company on? You know, have you stagnated there just for a year or whatever, and now you're just looking for a new place to settle down? Or have you, like, you know, really pushed the revenue, efficiencies, etc.? That's just my probably slightly controversial nonconformist opinion. But I don't feel that if you want to be a PM that you have to have a side project, because I didn't have a side project, and a lot of people we've hired as PMs have not had side projects. And as far as I'm aware, no side project, no one's ever, I don't know anyone in this field who's ever gone, oh my God, that guy's side project, God, you know, he was, you know, worst interview person ever, like absolutely no experience, and literally couldn't hold a conversation with him. Honestly, just kind of wanted to, you know, hit him around the head and just stop him to talking. But that side project won me over, and that's why I don't really count it. But that's just, again, my opinion.
I think that's pretty valid. Although I would say to is it Daryl Gonzalez's question here, which I would attach to it, because he's in an enterprise role in Dell, which is a behemoth, and it's very hard to move around in there from one business unit to another, specifically from one product, from IT to product, can be very tricky. And I know people who have used their enterprise level job as an investor in the business they're trying to start up. And if that's how you're viewing it, and it's less of a side project, this is my passion, this is what I want to do, but my day job is my investor. I would qualify it like that. Yeah. Because I think that's, if you just, parachute drop yourself and go for it on a startup by yourself, you will learn a lot about product management. You'll have to. And you'll learn more in a month of trying to get something off the ground by yourself than you will in 2 years in an enterprise product management role, in my experience.
I was just going to jump on. When I was applying for jobs actually in America, I found actually a lot of companies held that I was a founder of 2 companies against me, because they basically just thought, oh God, he's just going to come here and then just bugger off again. But one of the nice things about being a founder is you can give yourself any title you want. In one job, I remember after I'd been very frustrated, I gave myself the title of Supreme Leader. I did not get that job. But it does give you that versatility in that regard. And as what Vince said, you will learn more than about a week of running your own company than you will probably in about a year of being a PM. Slight exaggeration, but yeah. And it's just really invaluable, but don't just do it just for the sake of getting a job. Like, make sure it's your passion, because it will crush you.
To Daniel's point, I love seeing founders. It's great. I enjoy bringing them into the process. But I think the caveat is like, hey, did you launch a product? Did it land? Right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people, there's a lot of startups, and there's a lot of that on resumes, but it doesn't really mean a lot if it's like didn't really go anywhere, right? You didn't really learn how to launch a product, or you didn't launch a product, right? And all those things at the end of the day are obviously going to be a key to success in an industry type of environment.
Yeah, I don't think there's a universal, opinion from me on this. It really depends on what the side project or side hustle was. A lot of people have side hustles now, so it's really the story. And, is this a compliment to you as a person? Were you in a role where you didn't have an opportunity, so you made an opportunity outside of your role and outside of the company? So it really just depends on how they use that side hustle and what it was about. Sometimes it's a total flop. Like, yeah, great, you did this amazing thing and you helped all these kids, but it's got nothing to do with this role. So it makes you a more interesting person, and that might help. Proves you're not an asshole. But it just depends. For me, I've seen a lot of different experiences come across resumes. So. And I always like to see founders too. I think that shows initiative and you're willing to take a risk. So I always give those at least a look, put them at the top of the pile before passing on anything.
Cool. So kind of on this, what are 3 things, and this was directed towards Nathan, but I think this is a good question for everyone. What are the 3 main things that you're looking for in a candidate when you're interviewing them?
No, great question. So, of course, if you're familiar with Google's PM hiring, essentially, like right out of school, maybe like a year or so experience, you tend to go to an APM route. Or if you just got an MBA, for instance, you tend to go into an MBA hiring route. So those processes are a little bit different. I work on the industry side. So generally what I'm going to be looking for is at least 2 years of really direct product experience. Unfortunately, Google's not one of those where it's like, hey, I'm going to just try to kind of come in as an industry candidate. Generally, we do need to have that experience. So what's that mean in terms of how I evaluate or how I look? Of course, I'm looking for that experience. It could be at a startup. It might be at a large competitor, but it's having that actual product experience. The second thing is, as I kind of mentioned with that, is like, have you actually been able to launch something? Have you gone through the product life cycle? One thing that I think concerns, and I'm sure some of the other hiring managers on here will say, like, if you've been in like 5 different product roles over 5 years, did you launch anything in any of those roles, right? It's important. And it's not because I'm going to judge you on that product or its success. It just means you kind of know from like get-go of like, this is where it starts. This is the processes I have to go through. These are the things that either worked or didn't work. And those things just stand out in our interviews. And then really beyond that is just I think to a lot of the things that have been said here, I really look for your communication skills. I mean, PM is just so reliant on that. Being able to really kind of walk through answers, give me a good idea of, kind of how you think about things, how you view problems, that creativity as well. So all those, I mean, it's just kind of a lot to say on a first screen per se, but if I can get a pretty good idea there, and that you're knocking off, if you're hitting the marks there, I'll feel pretty comfortable moving forward. And if there's areas that I'm like, hey, I can kind of tell these are places you'll be at, I'm generally one that will kind of say, hey, probably spend a little bit more time on this, especially, if you go into the interview process.
Yeah. I'm looking for three things specifically, and this is more personality focused, but one is intellectual horsepower. Especially in our phase and the diversity of verticals we work in, you need to become an expert on customers and verticals in very short time. So you need to be wicked smart. You just have to be. The other one is to Nathan's point, you have to be a good communicator, and that's a two-way thing. Can you listen? Can you talk? Can you hold a room? Can you really understand and get clarity from people? And are you scrappy? Can you fight it out and scrap it out and lead when it's obscure and you don't have that authority? So those are kind of the three things I'm looking for.
Anyone else?
Yeah, like I'm basically just going to kind of just copy what Vince just said, really. There's so many routes into being a PM that just to name three skills would be kind of like actual hardcore skills would be kind of close to impossible. But for me, especially, it's just about personality. Not just about personality, but kind of, can you actually get down and dirty and get stuff done? It's all well and good being able to look at the 30,000 foot view and be like, God, if we release this, we'll be a market leader in 2 years. But to actually go and get that sorted and actually to be able to go and implement that with all the crap that is going to come your way is a skill that's almost unteachable. So if you can demonstrate you have that, like, you will go to the top of the pile.
Yeah, I think critical thinking is huge. Like just being able to approach a problem from a lot of different advantages, come up with multiple solutions, and make a pitch and a recommendation. Like, you got to know your product. You got to be a champion and advocate. So those are things to see. You may not have the experience, but do you have that mindset? And can you show that in the interview? That goes a long way for me, for sure.
So one thing that I didn't hear on this, and some people have asked, what are the technical skills that you think a product manager should have and that you're looking for, or do you not care?
My technical skills were about as good as my dead grandma's. But what I do bring to the table is the sense of, like, I went out to learn, when I came into this, that's maybe a bit of an exaggeration. I had at least some basic technical understanding. Like, I know how to turn on a computer. I can code it in HTML and CSS. My Python is probably bad. You would class as bad, but might be, just about passable. But the thing I did was, as soon as I got the job, I went out to learn as much as I possibly could about Python, APIs, Kafka, Kinesis, S3, Ansible. I can't really do them, but at least I understand those concepts, that technical capability, those technical tools that we're using. So when those conversations come up, you can at least participate. The one thing I would say is, I think sometimes people think that a PM is just kind of another role of being an engineering manager. I have a fantastic engineering team. And so consequently, I basically will just tell them what to go and build, and I'll let them figure out how to build it. So if I want a red car, like, go build me a red car. As long as it's red and it's a car, I don't really care. As long as it's solving the problem that we want it to solve and is fixing, our user personas, pain points, that's something that we can go and do. That technical understanding and that technical, like, tool set that goes into that product, I don't really want to be involved in that because that's not my expertise. That's my engineering team's expertise.
Yeah, I think only technical things my product managers need to do is make me executive dashboards, whether that's in a Power BI or a Looker type tool that you're using. I just need to be able to see what's going on in real time. That's about it. You know, can they use the tools to drive product? It helps. It's helpful to know what's possible given the tech stack that your engineering team is using, and to learn that vocabulary. But again, if you have, like I said, if you have that intellectual horsepower, you're going to be able to pick that up just in conversations, and within 2-3 months on the job, you're going to know what the capabilities are of your engineering team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go with depends again. Like I have a role in a team now that it's a lot more about product health and what's going on with the channel and being really close with the save team and the engineering team. And we've seen a couple people cycle out of that role, and having a little more technical expertise in there will serve someone really well because they're so close to that side of the product. But for most other roles, it's really not important. And sometimes it actually gets in the way, because if you have a strong engineering background, you're going to move to solutions, and you're not going to let the engineers have as much space to be innovative and come up with their own solutions, is what I've seen. Sometimes it can get in the way, not always. Sometimes you have a great engineer and they have that background and they're ready to step out of that, but they know enough to keep the engineering team honest. And I think that's the main thing. Like you do have to be curious enough to learn about the stack and have some basic knowledge, but we can get people there. Like I don't put that as a stage gate on the interview process at all.
I guess Google will be a little bit of the outlier here. So in terms of, when you go on site, essentially the on-site interviews, there's 5 different ones, and I won't get into the details of that, but one of those interviews is with the software engineer. So in the past, I think Google kind of had the thing where you kind of had to come in and maybe even show you could code, really get pretty technical. At this point, I describe those interviews as kind of a systems design interview without the coding. So we really look to see that people can understand how to explain how systems are built, how they're architected, how the different parts go together. And a big reason for this isn't because we expect them to do that work, right? We've got the engineers to do that. But when you've got a lot of engineers with a lot of opinions, we want to have people in the room that kind of can know enough about the tech to be able to work with it. And I think to Vince's point, and some of the other points have been brought up, this is one of the areas where we really look to see that ability to kind of work cross-functionally, right? Our PMs are really smart, but they don't get to tell Eng what to do at the end of the day, right? And a lot of that interview is really being able to get a guise of like, hey, is this someone we're going to be able to stick with our engineering, either a SWE counterpart, engineering manager, and have them be understanding. So I always send candidates that I work with, some prepping around, general concepts, general trends, are things that help in CS, but I wouldn't say, hey, you need to have a CS degree to pass that interview. It's really not that stringent.
Yeah, the short story is a PM's job is to know what to do. It's the discrete work group's job to know how to do it.
Cool. So taking a little divergence here, there's a lot of people probably here on this Zoom call that are PM adjacent roles. So whether that's design, data analysis, project management, program management. So I know most of you, of course, focus in on product management, but what do you look for are you involved in the interviewing of those people? What do you look for in particular, generally, in hiring someone into a product team? What do you look for? Ooh, I stumped them.
Yeah. I'll speak to Google. So we have a big thing here Google has a big internal mobility culture. So I often see this. In fact, we've got internal groups that basically, You might be a PGM. You might be in solutions. I saw recently someone who was a technical writer just recently interviewed and is going into a full-time PM role. So I think that they look for the same kind of skill sets. It's just, I think, a lot more hands-on learning with Google with the opportunities internally. And I usually tell candidates that are in kind of situations like this that maybe aren't getting that exposure is, seeing if there's someone at your company who does that role that you can kind of work with on what we call like a 20% project, right? Do you have the time to get a little bit of that? Because that goes a long way of actually learning from someone directly. And I think that's why it's successful, or that option has been utilized so often within our organization.
Ask to ride along maybe with the product manager if you're in a smaller group and you can do that. I think that's a great opportunity. And then if you're in a work group that is adjacent to product, who's the point of contact for your work group into product? That's the person to talk to, and get a look into what product management is all about from their eyes, so you can see that route. I mean, that's where your team is engaging. Unless you are that face, then the path into product management is a little more clear.
Yeah, and it's going to be different probably across companies, but I know at Schwab we've got a variety of ways to do that. There's job shadowing, there's actual you can be embedded for a 3-month period on a product team. We do that with, different types of roles, but also that like tag along, you can just say, hey, I want to come to some meetings. I want to see a little bit more about what this is about. It doesn't have to be that big of a commitment. So there's a pretty wide range at Schwab, and I know at larger companies you'll have similar type of opportunities, but at smaller places, I think it's that scrappy, showing you're interested, being able to provide some value. Everybody always needs help, so willing to pitch in and help somebody out, and you get some learning out of it, can take you a long way.
Okay, so I think, there's a lot more questions, but what we're going to do now is we're actually going to go to the breakout sessions. And what this is if you're in Slack, hopefully you're all in Slack, please. I'm going to post links to each breakout session. And these sessions are going to last 10 minutes long, and you pick 3 of them. So you're going to be in one for 10 minutes. You can ask your questions verbally. You can actually, turn on your video and audio and ask these questions. And then after 10 minutes is up, you're going to go to the other group you picked. And then after 10 minutes is up, you're going to go to the other group you picked. And then that's going to be it. And that'll be the end of it for this evening. But before you take off, let me wrap this up here. Oh, you're seeing my Zoom. There you go. There we go. Back to this. So before you guys take off and go to the breakout sessions, before I post them, I wanted to thank you for coming this evening, because you're not going to be coming back here probably. Always go to Product in Austin to see product events coming up, and that links to all the meetup pages. Sign up on our meetup page to find out about upcoming activities. And of course, we're always looking for sponsors. If we ever get venues again, we'll need venues or food or whatever. So if you're hiring and you want to get more promotion, just let us know. And we're looking for speakers. So if you would love to speak on something about a hiring skill or something, or if you want a topic discussed, reach out to me. I'm on the Slack as well, or you can email me. There's my email at the bottom. Upcoming product events, next week on April 23rd, we have a Product Tank Austin event. And so you can go to there and RSVP for that. It's also going to be a remote thing. And then on April 28th, there's an Agile Austin Product SIG. And that's going to be posted on the events channel on our Slack. And I think it's also a General Assembly's page there as well.